Good morning, everybody. I had a meeting that I had to go to this morning. I should be back, I think, around 11:30 or 12 sometime this afternoon. But anyway, I thought I would go through and show you our math lesson today. And it's actually a review of something that we have talked about earlier this year. And I think you'll recognize part of it. Okay, we're going to talk about multiplying decimals by 10, 100, or 1,000. In other words, multiplying decimals by powers of 10. Okay, if you remember our little saying, remember how we marched and we went, when you multiply decimals by powers of 10, move it to the right. And then we talked about dividing. When you divide decimal numbers by powers of 10, move it to the left. Now, that is what we talked about earlier in the year. So, you can think of the little person. Remember, we stood up and moved the decimal to the right, or we moved the decimal to the left. So, when we say, when you multiply decimals by powers of 10, move it, meaning the decimal, to the right. Now, this lesson just happens to be totally on multiplying decimals by powers of 10. So, I've got a few examples up here, and we're going to think of the head of the little person as the decimal point. So, when you multiply decimals by powers of 10, you move it, or the decimal, to the right. And if you remember earlier when we talked about this, you move it to the right by how many zeros there are in the number. So you have to count the zeros. So for example, on our first problem here, we have 587 thousandths multiplied by 10. Well, there is 1 0 in 10. So we move the decimal to the right 1 place. So our answer would be 5 and 87 hundredths. Okay, let's look at another one. Take our little person with the decimal as the head. 34 and 813 thousandths multiplied by 100. Well, now we have 2 zeros, so we move the decimal to the right 2 places. 1, 2. So our answer would be 3481 decimal 3. 3,481 and 3/10. Okay, another example. Let's take our decimal and put it here. So we have 7 and 145 thousandths multiplied by 1,000. There are 3 zeros. So we'll move our decimal place, or our decimal 3 places to the right. 1, 2, 3. So now the answer is 7,145 because the decimal is behind or after the 5. Now, in our last example on this page, I have 56 and 34 hundredths. This time, there are 3 zeros in 1,000, so I'm going to move my decimal place, or my decimal 3 places to the right. But now, in this example, something is going to happen. So we've got 1, 2, 3. Now, we can't leave this space totally empty. So what we have to do is we have to put a 0 in this space. So the answer is going to be 56,340. All right, let's look at a couple more examples. But this time, the powers of 10 are actually shown in exponential notation. So we're going to have to add one more little step to it. Okay, so we have 7 and 814 thousandths multiplied by 10 to the second power, or 10 squared. Well, we first have to figure out what 10 squared is. Okay, remember, it's really easy to write the standard form of exponential notation where the base is 10. We have a 1 with 2 zeros. So 10 squared is actually 100. So that means we are going to be multiplying 7 and 814 thousandths by 100. There are 2 zeros in 100, so we move our decimal place, or our decimal, 2 places to the right. 1, 2. So our answer would be 781.4. We would now ignore that decimal because remember we just moved it. Okay, now in the next problem right here, I've left a little space here in the middle because of what our example is going to look like. 10 cubed, or 10 to the third power, would be a 1 with 3 zeros, 1, 2, 3, so that's 1,000. So it's 16 5/10 multiplied by 1,000. So we're going to have to move our decimal 3 places to the right. So here's our decimal. 3 places to the right would be 1. Actually, I'm not going to show it with the little running man because I'm going to show you what's going to happen in this case. So I'm going to just kind of draw in how I'm moving it. So I'm going to move it, the decimal 3 places to the right. There's 1 place, there's 2 places, there's 3 places. So the decimal is here now. Well, in these areas, I can't leave them blank, so I've got to fill them in with zeros. So my answer would be 16,500 because the decimal is now at the end. Okay, let's forget our little running man. I think you've kind of got the hang of that. So we'll put him right back up here in the corner. So I'm just going to draw in how many places I moved the decimal. So 10 to the second power, remember that's a 1 with 2 zeros, so that's 100. Okay, I'm going to move my decimal 2 places to the right. 1, 2, so my answer is 3 87/100. I don't have to put the 2 zeros in front because it would still be 3 wholes. All right, and in my last example, I've got 10 to the first power. So that would be a 1 with 1 zero, so it's just 10. So 10 to the first power is just 10. Okay, so 28 934 thousandths multiplied by 10. We are going to move the decimal 1 place to the right. 1 place to the right, so now it goes here. So it would be 289 34/100. Now, I could show you example after example after example, but it's the exact same thing. You just have to remember, when you multiply decimals by powers of 10, move it to the right by however many zeros there are in the number that's the power of 10, the 1,000, the 100, or the 10. Now, just 1 or 2 other real quick examples I think I might need to add on here. Let's say you had 3 4/10 multiplied by 1. Well, at first this may seem a little tricky, but let's think about it. When you multiply decimals by powers of 10, you move the decimal to the right by however many zeros there are. Well, there are no zeros, so the decimal stays put. Once again, if you look really carefully, this is the identity property of multiplication. Remember, the identity property says when you multiply any number by 1, the answer is the number you started with. So our answer would be 3 4/10. Now, one more example I think I'd better throw out there, just in case you come across it. And I'm going to erase this down here at the bottom, just to give myself a little more room and I don't go into the blue. If you had, let's say, 4 67/100 multiplied by 10 to the 0 power. Okay, 10 to the 0 power. This is a 1 with 0 zeros. So 10 to the 0 power is actually 1. So we multiply 4 and 67/100ths by 1. Well, once again, there's the identity property. So the answer would be 4 and 67/100ths. All right, so after seeing these examples, you're going to go and do your assignment. Okay, your assignment is on page 146. You are going to do all of these. You're going to put the answers only on your paper, and I'm going to show you an example of how you can do that. Then on page 147, you're going to do numbers 37 through 41. Show how you got each answer. Don't just put an answer on your paper. Okay, so over on page 146, here's page 146, and you're going to do all of them. Now, I'm going to move my paper up a little bit. So let's say this is your notebook paper right here. So I told you on page 146 you could do the answers only. So number 1. Okay, if you look over here at number 1, you have got 9 thousandths multiplied by 10. So you move the decimal place to the right 1 place because there's only 1 0 in 10. Well, when you do that, it's going to put the 0 or the decimal right in front here. So the answer would be 0.09. So you could put 0.09. Now, if it helps you, what you might also want to do, instead of just writing down the answer, if I were to work this out for number 1, I could put 0.009, and I know I'm multiplying by 10, so I know I have to move the decimal 1 place to the right, and you could even write this on your paper, 1 place to the right, put the new decimal, and that way you can just rewrite your answer 0.09. So it may help to do part of the problem on your paper. Okay, so that's all of this page. Page 146, remember you're doing all of them, numbers 1 through 36. And then over on page I can't see the page number. So 146, all right, page 147, just want to make sure. On page 147, once again, you're doing all of these, numbers 37 through 41, but you show how you got each answer. Make sure you show how. Okay, so I'm going to put this back on the assignment page. And if you have any questions, your teacher will be more than happy, I'm sure, to help you out. Okay, I will see you later. Oh, also, I almost forgot one other thing. The pages that I assigned yesterday for you to complete, we will check those tomorrow. So those should still stay in your notebook. Don't tear them out. Don't lose them. We will check them tomorrow. If you were absent, make sure you come up and get your makeup work. Also, if you were absent, you are going to need to take your makeup math test. So you will need to come in my classroom during our recess time today in order to do that. Okay, I'll see you guys later.